In the mid-1990s, anime found its footing in the West, thanks to distribution companies choosing and working with the best shows Japan had to offer. While girls embraced the early weekday morning action of Sailor Moon, Saturday mornings were for the rowdiest of boys looking to rock the dragon, courtesy of Dragon Ball Z. The expansive narrative of DBZ found itself being retold through various mediums, including several video games across multiple consoles, like the Bullock series on the PlayStation 2, and now the 8th generation's tour de force, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. Being a big Dragon Ball fan, I was understandably excited to see if Kakarot not only did the series' story justice, but also delivered on perfectly presenting those epic encounters between Goku and his various indomitable adversaries. Rather than just stick to the easy route of doing a linear storyline presentation of Dragon Ball Z, developer CyberConnect 2 created an open world crafted after all the landmarks and arenas seen throughout the Z series, including King Kai's small planet, West City Housing Capsule Corporation, and of course Goku's home. Beyond the story missions full of battles both grandiose and annoying, there are a hefty amount of side missions scattered throughout the multiple chapters making up the game's overall 4 arcs, plus nearly 3 dozen more post-story side missions. These side quests usually don't go beyond whatever character being utilized performing fetch quests or defeating the same enemies that will appear on the maps. The side missions' most appealing aspects are usually the characters that present them, as some are old characters from the original Dragon Ball series, not either seen in Z or barely given any screen time. There are also more powerful, high-leveled enemies for the player to conquer if they want to, that will potentially prove tougher than any other fight during the story, including the boss story, training specific level 100 opponent full of more tricks than Super Boo. My original goal was to simply finish the story and all the side missions, but upon discovering the rather encouraging trophy list, I sunk in the time and got that platinum trophy after a little over 55 hours. While the biggest draw for some in regards to Kakarot is to relive the obvious abridged version of an extensive manga and anime franchise, Z's combat featuring one-of-a-kind battles against intergalactic beings, androids, and even a monster made of pink goo provides the most excitement both in its most celebrated forms and here. The player can mix striking with ki blast, blocking, which features a guard system that wears down the longer the character blocks incoming attacks until the energy shield breaks and leaves a character stunned, and dodging, with a properly timed dodge opening up the enemy for a counterattack. The legendary superpowered ki attacks like Goku's Kamehameha Wave and Piccolo's Special Beam Cannon can be activated at any time during battle as long as the character has enough ki. But players can't spam these special attacks as enemies will dodge and sprint across an arena, leaving the protagonist vulnerable to be slapped down into the ground. Players can hold down a single button to refill their ki and even enter surge mode, thanks to the same button being held for an extended period that will power up everything that character does for a short time, including their finishing blows. As the story progresses, so does the ability to pull off Z combo attacks if the player has 2 supporting characters in their party. These supporting characters can also perform one of 2 assigned special ki attacks at the player's command during battle. All of the action takes place in a hovering state, similar to the combat in Dragon Ball Xenoverse, but feels a lot tighter and more responsive than its obvious inspiration. With each successful battle or even following an extensive cutscene, characters are given experience points and orbs, with the latter being responsible for purchasing skills in every playable character skill tree. Some skills are locked until the player completes the training ground side missions that are unlocked via story progression and, most importantly, D-medals found throughout the world. Orbs litter each area, so the player can fly around and pick them up if they choose to, though waiting until the availability of the Dragon Balls to make wishes for orbs proves more beneficial in the long run from a time-saving perspective. Cooking is also a thing to potentially benefit the player's experience, with full-course meals cooked by Goku's wife Chi-Chi, giving minor permanent stat boosts. But none of this really matters in regards to the enemy difficulty because of the game's leveling system. Kakarot is nothing short of generous in regards to the EXP dished out to put whatever main character is the current focus at or near the level of their current enemy. When learning the ropes, battles like the ones with Raditz and Nappa can provide some impressive challenges. Unfortunately, by the story's end, due to the leveling system, the enemy AI never evolving, and the lack of an actual difficulty setting, the boss battles against the likes of Perfect Cell and Majin Buu become laughably easy. Even the villainous battles the game warns players about, featuring brutish, higher-level foes, are mostly one-hit kill encounters if the player waits to the last act to complete most of them, as these dangerous enemies are capped at specific levels, never rising to match the average level of the player's characters. There's no need to grind for experience or invest in a lot of healing items for the narrative's missions and fights because of the game's lack of overall difficulty, though some of the post-fights can be arduous if the player uses under-level characters. The other issue with the game's combat is definitely the camera. At times, the camera will go into walls and landmasses after your character is knocked backwards, will shoot upwards haphazardly to follow the opponent currently focused on via the game's hard lock system, and the odd decision to cut off and make irrelevant a player's special key attack if the game decides during a boss battle to do a cinematic close-up of the enemy's next maneuver. While the battles are mostly fun, specifically the boss battles, and not the same hundreds of fights the player will have with Red Ribbon Army robots or Frieza's grunts, it's hard to deny that there are some glaring flaws that hinder the overall enjoyment of the combat system. For those dedicated to Kakarot's source material, there will be some disappointment connected to the mostly satisfying narrative presentation. Kakarot hits all the high notes in regards to the retelling of each major saga witnessed during Z. Between each story arc is an intermission sequence that actually does a great job adding some character development, usually focusing on Gohan, including the fallout of the Cell games. Even without doing the side quest or collecting items to improve the game's training options, Kakarot will take players at least 40 hours to finish the main story, and even then it feels a tad underwhelming. Beyond the expected feeling of seeing this story before in a better fashion, there is the fact that certain moments and scenes had to be cut for time constraint reasons, such as Vegeta's emotional explanation as to how he reached the level of Super Saiyan, and some of the moments that weren't cut don't have the same pop or flair as their counterparts, usually thanks to the static cutscenes implemented a majority of the time, featuring stiff animation and terrible lip syncing. The full-blown, non-interactive cutscenes are absolutely gorgeous, with a majority of them occurring in the first two arcs. Though the side missions do a nice job presenting Easter eggs, they too suffer from bland presentation and an overall unappealing mission structure, including extensive fetch quests, though some work incredibly well thanks to the characters involved, like Krillin becoming just as perverted as Master Roshi. The developers mostly did their best considering how much they had to work with, but it still feels underwhelming considering some of the incredible moments in the series just don't translate well in Kakarot. Beyond the main and side missions are other objectives like the aforementioned training sequences. Players can also get Bulma to build vehicles for racing, play baseball in an elementary version of the same baseball minigame seen in the Yakuza series, and fishing for the next big meal. None of the minigames leave a lasting impression, but it's nice to have some variety. But nothing ties this game more to the RPG genre than the community board. By attaining soul emblems via successful story and side missions, the player can place these Pog-like items onto one of the board categories headed by certain characters, like the most battle-focused Z-Warrior board or the adult board, to help cut down on the item prices when purchasing materials and food. Most soul emblems come with boost if said emblem is placed in line with another, like Goku and Gohan's. The benefits of building each board can be minuscule at best at lower levels, like getting just +1 key % attack boost, and pretty impressive when a board is maxed out, such as getting an extra 100% EXP boost. The overall enjoyment of mixing and matching soul emblems is hard to deny, while reaping the potential game-changing rewards. From a technical aspect, Kakarot is a mixed bag. Though recent updates have helped improve loading times on consoles and fix problems like certain side missions not appearing on the map, the game still features frame rate drops, graphical glitches, the aforementioned camera issues, and the extensive Z encyclopedia to view all of the games as collectibles, causing Kakarot to crash when opened. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot is the epitome of an anime manga experience turned digital, obviously rewarding dedicated fans without offering anything new or remarkable, all the while alienating newer fans who will definitely not fully understand why a little boy would turn into a gigantic ape during a full moon. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot is obviously a game made by DBZ fans for Dragon Ball Z fans, looking to revel in the abridged nostalgia with a fun combat system hampered by camera issues and a lacking difficulty. There is a lot to do, including side missions, mini-games, and playing around with the game's most RPG-centric aspect in the community board, but none of it feels necessary to enjoy the overall presentation. Die-hard Dragon Ball Z fans will have a fun time mostly throughout, though the constant low-level enemy encounters and some choices in regards to the narrative presentation will definitely have some gritting their teeth due to tedium. Kakarot is a game DBZ fans should definitely check out with no need to rush and pick it up when it's not on sale, and the uninitiated should rent it if they can. But even then, don't set your expectations too high, like someone being blown out of the atmosphere by a Kamehameha wave.
This is incredible! It's giving off a ton of energy.